the risk of, who knows where to go, but do you have any, I don't want, do you have any questions? There's no way I can go through and like take all, I had 23 people respond, right? And some had one question, some had more than one question, some had, I don't have any questions. But I can't go through and we just can't answer all those questions. But are there burning questions that you might have about the book that we could maybe answer? Yeah.
Not a question, but a comment. And I think in the work that we've done with Linda, it comes out pretty evident. The book, right, in any book like that, has to categorize and sort of, pigeonhole those functions or those gifts or whatever you want to call them, so there's clarity in the book so that you can understand it. But in reality, that's not how people are. People are really more along a spectrum. Okay, so you may think, well, gee, I'm nothing more than a pastor or a teacher. I'm number 3 and all that. But if you were to really look at it, no, you have apostolic gifting. Maybe not as strong as somebody that is referenced in the book, but you have those giftings, okay? And everybody has, it's more of a spectrum than it is a pigeonhole. You have a place where, yeah, you've got more than, those around you for that particular gift. But you have some evangelism, you have some, apostolic, you have some teaching, you have some of all of those. So, back to your example of the Muggsy Bogues example, it's not like he's standing under the basket with no hands.
Right.
He has hands. He can catch the ball. Okay? So we have to use what we've been given, and we've been given a broad range of things. We're focused on maybe 1 or 2, but we've been given a broad range of things. And when the time comes, the opportunity comes, you have to be focused on the mission, which is most important.
Yeah.
To say, hey, I'm the guy here, I've got hands. Maybe they're not as good hands as Alonzo Mourning, maybe they're not as high in the air as his, but man, I can catch the ball. And
right.
You gotta do it.
That's a good reminder. And the reason that all of you have that spectrum, so all of you should be able to read that and go, I can see some of that in me, I can see some of that in me, I can see a lot of that in me, is because God picked Kyle up and put him in an unreached people group. Kyle doesn't have the luxury of saying, well, I guess I'll wait here till you send 4 other people. Not like God's going to call those out of you to use them in that setting, right? So the overall principle here is, I just want to be open to God using me however He wants to use me. At the same time, I'm recognizing how He made me, the gifts that I have, my part in the body. We joke about, if you're not if you don't have a really cheery disposition, first impressions might not be the place, right? It's not, it just doesn't make you a bad person. It just means Eeyore's not a greeter in the church, right? They find something else for him to do. I don't know what it is, but they'll find something that he's, welcome to the gathering. That's not your place. So I think it's okay, and I think the reason why I read that book is because I read that book as a pastor looking at all of y'all going, man, I want y'all to tap into the strengths God's given you. And then I want you to tap into honor so that you can give it to people who are struggling through weaknesses on the way to their strengths, right? Because that's how we grow. We're going to fail, right? And we need to learn how to grow through that. Yes?
The risk of being redundant, I was thinking we were talking about being a spectrum. I thought of the colors of a rainbow, and when we shine light through a prism, all the colors make up that.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's.
Yeah, that's good. I know the biggest comments are, I should probably read the book. And what is this form you keep talking about? So just let me clarify all that, okay? Because I know we're talking about, this is the first time Renee and I've been here. Not because they don't love us, because they've had stuff the other 2 days, and we've talked about that. When we only meet 4 times a year, if stuff falls on those days, you could go 6 months and not know what's going on. So I probably should have said this up front so y'all wouldn't have been confused. But the book was given out last time, so you had 3 months. I did ask you to read it in the first month, and I can say confidently that you did not. Love you anyway. Some of you did. Yeah. So the form was sent out. The form was sent out at the end of that first month, just so you could start giving us responses. I had a number of you also that just sent text and said, like, I've started reading it, it's taken me longer to read it, I want to process, I don't know what questions to ask. All that's good, right? I'm not, I'm on that first month going, what's wrong with you people? It's just, let's start checking in and seeing where we are. If you still haven't read the book, you need to read the book.
We're still reading the book.
Yeah, that's fine. And some people read faster than others, I totally get it. So, as you finish reading it, and even if you've already filled out the form, if you got more questions, more comments, it's one of the emails that I sent probably about 2 months ago, and it's got a link to a Google form. It's still active. I check it. You cannot fill it out from your phone. You have to use a computer, right?
Do you have any more?
Books or forms?
The book for Kim?
I think we might have some more church. Maybe not. I'll look and see. So, yeah, we'll look and see. We can get more. Just use your mind powers, Kim. Mind powers, Kim. Just read our minds, probably.
Hey, I've got Amazon, I can buy it.
So, let me ask you this.
She can have one of our copies, because Chase is having us send the audio version. So I can bring it to you.
Okay. If anybody else needs one, we can give them one of our books, if anybody else needs one.
Does everybody have a copy? Does anybody else not have a copy of the book? Any other questions or comments about the book part? And then we're going to shift the focus. Yeah.
Did anybody else, like when I read, and I haven't gotten into the whole book, but my first thing was I'm in the wrong place. Did anybody else get that feeling?
That you're there, Bill?
Say that
You're in the
again.
wrong place?
No, I felt like I should quit my job. You know,
She said she read the
I
book.
didn't fit the mold that.
Yeah. She read the book and her first thought was, I'm in the wrong place. So, like, she was asking if anybody else felt that way.
Wrong place as position,
Yeah, I didn't fit all the criteria of a teacher. I was like, I'm not like that, I'm not like that, no, I'm like.
So, only to, go ahead.
I would say, as a teacher, I felt that same way.
Okay.
And I honestly didn't feel like he did justice in how he talked about teacher role. Because I think he talked about the negative side of it, which it's okay, because I think we do have that personality. But I also think he didn't take into effect that there are different types of teachers and the personalities of how we present. Even as he was talking about the gospel and how forceful that it can come out from a teacher and how pinpoint they can be so focused on certain things, he didn't take the initiative to also talk about the other perspectives that other teachers may have. And like John's saying, the balance role. You're trying to understand who you are as a teacher and keep a balance in that. And you're always going to be wrestling with how to deal with that, but you may not come across that one personality. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I felt that, for sure, because that's the first thing I told him. I was like, and then he even said, if you're a teacher, you're probably not like this. And I'm like, yep. Yeah. So I totally get that.
So I'm not coming to you because I need a comment. Just to kind of go back to what John said too, that's the pigeonhole thing. Where I think he's trying to make it, like with the video that we watched, we all kind of nervously laughed when he was talking about teachers saying like, just believe the Bible, just believe the Bible. Well, I'm a teacher. I do believe if you believe the Bible, a lot of your life will be better. But I know it's not going to fix everything immediately, right? But he made it sound like that would be all I believe. But he's trying to clearly draw the lines. So what you're going to say, and then I'll comment on you.
I think, I don't know which way to turn, but I think there's an element of separating what we do from how we're gifted. Because you do the job of a teacher doesn't necessarily mean that that's your specific gifting. And what you're gifted in is used in your teaching role. You know, I think we have to learn and talk to God about that and figure out how those two work together for us.
Yeah, but what I was going to say was just as an example from my life, and I think Bridget could say the same thing. I don't know, I can't remember, Phil, you, but in the personality test and spiritual gift test that we take, I never test as a pastor. Ever. And I'm like, but I'm a
No, you're not
pastor.
according to those things.
So, and that used to really drive me crazy. I mean, it's a little public affirmation for you. This is how God's using you in my life. I really struggle with that. Like, but I'm a pastor. How can I not have the gift of a pastor? Because I don't have the gift of a pastor? but I can apparently still pastor, because I am. But it's okay, it's all good, and I just learned how to get people around us that, that's where elders are so important, because a lot of our elders actually have the hearts of pastors. And in our structure, this goes full circle back to, do we want to mimic another church? No, what it says to me is, I want community group leaders who have the gift of pastor. Because they're actually the pastors of our church. They're pastoring their community groups. And I'm leading those leaders, which is probably, I think, more apostolic. I don't even know what that means. To be fully honest, I'm not quite sure what, I know apostolic means leader of many people, the way he's saying it in the context. But that's stuff that we'll figure out with 8 months with Linda. Hashtag 8 months with Linda.
Along that, you're saying you don't test as a pastor. On page 70. It says.
Always approximately third line from the top.
Can a spiritual gift be taught? That just, I highlighted that and thought, I don't get that. Because it says in here that I can spend a few hours of training and that person can then pray for miracles and see miracles.
I'd have to go back and read that section again.
That stumped me.
Yeah.
So what I found when I was reading this was that I felt torn between the pastor and the teacher to identify my own self. And I think a lot of that actually has to do between the natural gifting and then the roles that I've been asked to fulfill. And so because you're called, to be in a position, you begin to acquire some of the traits and the characteristics through learning skills, versus like heart knowledge versus applied knowledge. And so we can be in roles where, maybe it's not our natural gifting, but because it is somewhat of a spectrum, and because we do have the ability to learn and adapt and receive spiritual gifting that maybe isn't what our natural inclination is, we can learn these things and then we can apply them later on after we've somewhat had some mastery of the skill set, so that way we can feel torn between some of these.
But then is it a gift or is it a skill? That's where I thought
I think that it's both, because we can, when you apply yourself to attempt, whether praying with the guidance of the Holy Spirit, you can be gifted with that thing, and then you are taught, spiritually, or even for me, I'm a structure person, so for me it's skills. Like, okay, how does one do this? And that's how I learn. But other people, I think it's different, but we can acquire those things and learn those things and then apply them as God calls us to do so.
To piggyback on that, I read that as not teaching a spiritual gift, but rather like I teach my children when they were young. We modeled in front of them how to pray. Then we taught them how Jesus taught us to pray. He provided a little structure to help us understand how to pray. And then when they pray out of the heart and on their own, if they happen to lay hands on somebody and somebody's healed, I mean, it's God doing it through them, but it's something they've been taught as a young believer, those spiritual disciplines, and then supernaturally God does things out of that. But it's not necessarily teaching them a spiritual gift.
That's how I thought it. Yeah, I would say it's maybe both, just because. So the example that's going through my head, and this might be a horrible example because it might muddy the waters totally, but it's clear in my head. So here we go. Let's give it a shot. Okay, just lay down for a second all of your preconceived ideas about how we witness and how we do evangelism and all that kind of stuff. Let's just start a clean slate. We were at Jesus Culture in Chicago, and we heard this testimony. They would get people together before the worship sets, and during the day they would send them out to do evangelism. So you can just imagine, it's a whole room full of eager college kids, right? We just want to go out and see people, pray for people, witness, whatever. But what they would do beforehand is they would spend time in prayer, and they had somebody there that was kind of training them in how to do it, and this is what they would say. While you're praying, ask God, like, prepare me for what I'm going to experience when I go out in Chicago. Big city, who do you want me to talk to that day? And then be aware of, do you have an image in your head? Is there a color? Is there, and I know that can be weird, I get all that, but like, they're just teaching them.
Like the treasure hunt.
Right,
They
they're
talk about
teaching
that.
them like how to do it, right? So they're teaching them a skill that may also go along with the gift that they have, but they're definitely teaching a skill, which goes back to, we should all know how to evangelize. Whether it's your gift or not, I don't really care. Like, we should all be evangelizing, but some people are naturally, I know that I'm gifted as a teacher. I know that I am. But all of you can teach if you were given skills, right? Just some of you are really, really, really good at it. So anyway, the story was they had these girls get on the stage to give a testimony, and they said, we did everything that you said to do, and while we were praying, weirdest thing, we saw yellow shoes, yellow tennis shoes. I think it was yellow. I think that's right. Yellow tennis shoes, and we were like, that's so weird. What's that about? So, of course, the entire day in Chicago, what are they doing? They're looking for yellow shoes, and they never found them. They got on the subway to come back, and they're so defeated. And sitting on the subway, they looked up, and there's a man with yellow shoes. And they walked over and said, I think we're supposed to pray for you. How can we pray for you? And he, I think it was his knee. Something was, they prayed for me, got healed right there. And so they experienced, like he said, I can teach them how to experience miracles. They experienced a miracle because somebody taught them how to look for the miracle. Does that make sense? Do they have the gift of healing? I have no clue, but the man got healed, and to me, that's what would matter the most. So I don't know if that even helps answer your question or not, but I do think it's an element of, we have got to teach people kind of how to do it, what to look for. The philosophical questions then become practical, like, okay, but how do we do it? Linda has a much better answer.
No.
And then Renee, I'm coming to you next.
One of the things that I've been learning is that separating the doing from the who we are part. And we can do lots of different things, but the giftings that we've been given affect our perspective on what we're doing. So you and I can do the same thing, but we may come at it just from a different perspective and be sensitive to a different aspect of it. That's helped me a lot in understanding this, is separating my doing from my gifting, from who I am, and how God is going to bring those two together, because it'll take me out of my comfort zone of what I naturally want to do, or naturally my perspective on it, and I've got to go with that.
That's good. Yes, Renee?
The whole time we've been talking about this, there was a scripture that kept coming to mind. I couldn't find it, so I just found it. And it says, if the spirit of him who raised Jesus from the dead is living in you, who raised Christ from the dead will also give life to mortal bodies because of his spirit who lives in you. So if we say that Jesus lives in us, that same power that raised him from the dead lives in us. And all we have to do is ask. We have to ask and let him pour into us what we need for the situation that he puts us in. That's what, because we're going to come across all different kind of things every day in our life. And we need to be ready to ask God to give us what we need for that time. We can all be used in all different areas if we're willing to ask and let him use us.
So
that's what the scripture just says.
Well, like you're saying, in that situation,
In that
if we need to
situation.
be an apostle, we'll be an apostle.
That's
If we need to be a
right.
teacher, we'll be a teacher.
We might be scared to death,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that his power does not live in us, and he can use each one of us in different areas that we're not normally used in.
Then we
That's
shouldn't
what
be
this is for.
called up with a title.
Oh, and
That's right.
Yeah.
And so I think one way that we dishonor people is that we do get caught up in titles. Well, I am whatever.
This, I know
So-
that. That's all I can do.
This may go back to the structural philosophical realm of this thing, but what I took away from the book, excuse me, what I took away from the book was an overarching emphasis on mission. And that's why I think he emphasized the apostolic gift so much, and why the Bible lists it first, is because this is not an earthly organization. We are not about earthly things. And it's that apostolic gifting that keeps our focus to what the mission is. And if you get some of the, all the gifts are, what's the right word? I'm not good with words, but useful. I'll use a utilitarian word. All the gifts are useful, all the gifts are effective, but the apostolic gift, one of the things it brings is the focus on the other world, the focus on what we're really all about, okay? And so, back to your basketball game example. you know, the focus is win the game. You win the game by getting the ball in the hoop. It doesn't matter who rebounds. Get the thing and go. As long as you have that focus, that's what brings honor. Because I don't care who's doing it. We're moving to the mission. Okay? It's all about the mission. It's not all about who we are or where we are or how we're gifted or what we're doing or any of that stuff. It's about, are we putting the ball in the hoop? Are we getting the mission accomplished? And so that apostolic gifting, which he continually brings to the forefront throughout this book, that's the thing it brings, is it raises the whole organization up, not to look at this world, but to look at the kingdom of God and to look at Jesus as the head.
Why that's fine,
Probably so. And I think I don't be good with the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 because that is so hierarchical. But there is, I keep thinking about, you preached a message in the coffee shop about alignment. I've never forgotten it. And you talked about a water, did you talk about skiing, behind a water boat? I think a water boat. Skiing behind a ski boat. I mean, you talked about getting the car aligned. I mean, we talked about that. So this is all about alignment, right? So to me, it's not priority, it's just alignment, right? So evangelists could have all the passion in the world to tell everybody about Jesus, but if there's somebody driving the boat, which would be the apostle, that's going to bring heaven to earth, that whole deal, then that just takes the evangelist right where he or she would want to be. That's all it is to me. It's not about more value than the other. It's all about just.
What's that sport where they're all in one boat?
Rowing?
I
Man, like, your message was so much better, I just jacked your whole message up. We're talking about water boats, like what other boat is there? Water boat. Sushi boat.